everybody should have access to clean water. Sisters and brothers, if that's radical, you're right here. I am so proud to be a part of this campaign. I have knocked doors, I have called homes, and I am inspired. And on Tuesday, you are here for a very important reason. That's why I do what I do. So Tuesday, August 7th, I want to stand proudly with all of you and say that we were part of a movement that elected the first Muslim American governor in the history of these United States of America. Y'all fired up? Y'all ready to go? That's what I'm talking about. Next up, I have the extreme pleasure of showing you the potential of Michigan and the best that you, Michigan, have to offer. I want you to give this sister a rousing applause. Help me welcome to the stage the wonderful Sarsour, running for state representative in District 8 in the northwest side of Detroit. She's one of my heroes. She's a Black Muslim immigrant activist and organizer, and we're so happy to have her support for Abdul, and I hope you send her to the State House. Give it up to Sarsour.
Assalamu alaikum, Michigan. How are you doing today? Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you, Linda. My name is Sarsour, and I am running for state representative in Michigan, State House District 8. Like Linda said, I quickly find out when I came to this country that my identity was political. Because for some folks, I was too Black. For others, I was too immigrant. For others, I was too woman. For others, as a single mom, I didn't have nowhere to go, right? And of course, in January, our President Donald J. Trump said that he was tired of seeing people coming from shithole country and coming into the United States. That ain't right. That's not right. But that also tells me that it was time for us to get in this fight and get ready. Because we could not sit down and watch our democracy being taken away from us. Right? Because Michigan, we sat here and watched while our community's resources were being siphoned away. We sat here and watched emergency managers close our schools. We sat here and watched the Flint water being poisoned. We sat here and watched people being taken away in our communities and being locked and deported. But then, we turned around and see Abdul al-Sayed. And Abdul al-Sayed decided that he was not going to sit around and watch that a city like Detroit can't afford the water for his community, but a city like Detroit can afford watching all his water being taken away from corporation. Abdul al-Sayed decided that he was not going to wait, and he was done waiting for us to be able to access Medicaid for all. Abdul al-Sayed decided that he was going to stop our communities being torn apart. And that's why today I stand here in front of you and I'm asking you to join us in this movement to ensure that we are going to vote for somebody that we can make accountable, somebody that knows what it takes to have our children get health care, somebody that knows what it takes to keep this city and keep this state afloat where we want it to be. So please, take your friends, take your mom, take your daughter, take your neighbors to the poll, because if Michigan don't make history, nobody is going to make it. If Michigan don't make history, nobody is going to make it. And I hope that as I stand here and I beg and plead with you, that you are going to ensure that Michigan turns blue, that you are going to ensure that we are going to be the blueprint for the revolution around the country so that we can gain our democracy, right? Thank you, Michigan. I have the pleasure to introduce Reverend Williams with the King Solomon Church, pastor of the King Solomon Church, but also president of the Michigan National Action Network.
Let me hear the revolutionaries make some noise in here. I couldn't really hear anything. Are there any revolutionaries? Let me hear you make some noise in here. I'm Reverend Charles Williams, the second president of the Michigan chapter of the National Action Network, pastor of the historic King Solomon Baptist Church, and by God, I am an American revolutionary, and I'm going to fight to do everything I possibly can do to get Abdul El-Sayed in office. We gonna knock every door, we gonna call every phone, we will keep up the fight. Because we believe that this country needs to own up to the fact that African-American men and women are being shot down by police, and we need special prosecutors, and we believe Abdul El-Sayed will fight to make sure we have special prosecutors. Because we believe that it's time for Democrats to stop pussyfooting and playing around with health care. We need a real health care policy. Because we believe that we don't want no more sellouts in office. We need a $15 an hour wage, not a $2, not a $7. I said a $15 wage. And most importantly, we believe that greedy Wall Street bankers have controlled this country too long. We believe that Wall Street, one, needs to pay their fair share. Two, they need to take their hand out of the pocket of democracy. We need to get rid of them, and they need to pay their fair share now. More importantly, the reason why I support Abdul Sayed, the reason why I'm standing here today, because I believe that Mexicans aren't criminals, Muslims aren't terrorists, Black Lives Matter, science is real, Jesus is too, Muhammad is too, water needs to be clean. I believe that we don't need to be divided, but we all need to come together. And as we come together, we'll stand under that old revolutionary anthem poet that we've all stated in our elementary years of school. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all of us. Are you ready to fight? Stand on your feet and make some noise. Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to march? Are you ready to go? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's give it up for the Delta workers, the Delta workers. They've been in the fight and we join in the fight with them. Good afternoon, Detroit.
My name is Ramsey Abdullah, and I'm here with my fellow friends and co-workers from Delta Airlines. I'm a Delta worker, I'm a Delta Airlines worker, and we want a union. I'm honored to be here today to tell you about our historic efforts to unionize at Delta Airlines. Currently, over 40,000 Delta Airlines employees from across the system and 5,000 here in Detroit are uniting to form a union with the world's largest airline union, the International Association of Machinists. Delta below wing workers and flight attendants are having our voices heard that we want the IAM. We want a voice in our future and a better life for our families. We want our communities to be stronger. And if you want a stronger Michigan, I encourage everybody on August 7th to go out and vote for Abdul.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Joe Nanine. My husband and father, resident of Dearborn, started my career with Northwest Airlines 11 years ago in Flint, Michigan. Transferred to Detroit, I'm working as a crew chief. Like many of you, we punch that clock every day, hustling to feed our families, while the corporate executives, the CEOs, they make all the profits. It's about time we get a voice and representation, and we get it for ourselves. But it's becoming harder and harder to make a living out there because businesses like Delta are shifting from career-oriented, full-time, benefited jobs to part-time, no-benefited jobs. Organizing the unorganized is imperative to the survival of the labor movement. Business as usual is not working. As you can see, we've lost union membership over the last 40, 50 years, and it's got to end. We need to organize the unorganized everywhere they work, whether it's in the bar, the bookstore, it don't matter where they work. You all deserve a union. You all deserve a living wage starting at $15 an hour. Full benefits, health care for everybody. To my co-workers out there nationally, all 40,000 of you, pay attention. Sign your card, your 2018 IAM authorization card. Talk to your co-workers. We need this union. We need to take care of our families. We need a better future. And I want to retire with dignity with a pension. When my back, my shoulders, my knees are all busted out from loading all these planes. Delta workers unite.
How's everybody doing today? My name's John Beckstrand and I'm a Ready Reserve ramp agent at Delta Airlines. I drove all the way here from Minneapolis last night just to be here at this rally. I grew up on a farm in west central Minnesota, so I'm no stranger to hard work. I love working on the ramp, being around heavy equipment. It reminds me of my childhood and how much remembrance of that I enjoy. However, I constantly see Delta demanding more and more work out of fewer and fewer employees. I understand business and Delta's demand to bolster their bottom line, benefit their profit and loss, and reward their shareholders. Delta has a fiduciary responsibility to these shareholders of loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, reasonable care, and accountability. Delta has none of these same responsibilities to us, the employees of Delta Airlines. Unionization is the only way for us to level that playing field. Thank you, Dr. Abdul Sayed, for publicly supporting our union campaign. We greatly appreciate it. Go IAM, go Delta Workers Unite. We will be union strong in 2018. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jay Robinson. I'm a rep agent at JFK. I came here today specifically for this event. I grew up in Compton, what was the last generation where only one parent had to work. My dad was a bass player at the Apollo, which meant he was a union musician. And this allowed my mother to stay home and raise me. When I was old enough for school, my mom started involving herself in community activities, and this eventually led to her becoming involved in politics. When I was 15, she decided to run for the New York State Assembly. She eventually lost, but I say that to point out the same guy she lost to when I was 15 is still in office, and I'm now 57. Now on to the next generation. 2016 was the first time my two children were old enough to vote in a presidential election. Of course, they voted for Senator Sanders in the primary. But we all know how the deck was stacked. As a Delta employee who's organizing for a union, I also see how corporations have stacked the deck against workers. We need to elect more people like Dr. El Sayed and Senator Sanders to support unions, because the only weapon workers have against corporate greed is organized labor. Thank you. Vote for Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon. My name is Howard Baker. No applause necessary. No applause necessary. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time, and it is our honor to introduce you to the state senator and president of our revolution. Please help me in welcoming Nina Turner.
And woman. God, I'm just tell you something. I'm so full today. Today is Sunday, right? My sister might preach up here this afternoon. I just got to put it out there. God, to be here for Brother Abdul, but to be here with you. And for all of the machinists that were up here talking, my sister Linda who laid it out, I just got to kind of I want you to wrap your mind around the importance of this moment. Because see, only all that we love is on the line, that's all. And to have a brother who believes in the purpose of politics. See, Dr. Abdul said he believes in the purpose of politics. And what that means is that we have to elect people like him who understand that the power that they wield is not their power, it's your power. And your power, and your power, and your power. And they need to wield that power on your behalf. And so it's not enough just to have a D behind your name. It is about standing up for the people. And caring more about the next generation than you care about the next election. So sisters and brothers, only all that you love is on the line. When you have a brother like Dr. Abdul, who says that he, through his administration, will work like hell in heaven to make sure that Medicare for all is a reality in the great state of Michigan, only all that you love is on the line. When you have a brother who understands that it is not okay 4 years later, and sisters and brothers, I want you to hear me clearly when I say to you 4 years later, that our sisters and brothers in Flint still cannot enjoy clean water. All that we love is on the line. Now there are three things, can I just say this? There are three just fundamental things that we should have in the United States of America. That is clean water, that is fresh air, that is food to eat, and that is not too much to ask. All that we love is on the line. And so for all of you who are here today, I want you to leave here more committed. Because see, the naysayers believe that this cannot be done. But we know that we are just getting started. And we're going to make this a reality on August the 7th and elect Brother Abdul as the next governor of the great state of Michigan. Only all that we love is on the And to hear my sister Linda break down what radical is. See, radical just simply means getting at the root of the thing. And what we know this, the system is rigged politically, is rigged economically, it is rigged socially, but just as some folks rigged it, it's gonna take all of us to unrig it, and we're gonna do that starting here in Michigan. All that we love is on the line. So if you care about yourself, if you care about your babies, if you care about the future, because Michigan, this is not just about you, but this is about all the other states in this great union of ours as we try to continue to level the playing field. See, Dr. Abdul, he's running for justice. See, Medicare for all is about justice. Clean water is about justice. Making sure that our babies have a good education is about justice. Making sure that black, brown, white, and yellow all together is about justice. That we rise and fall together is about justice. Using the people's power on behalf of the people is about justice. All that we love, all that you love is on the line. That's all. That's all that's on the line. That's all that we love. So now you got to leave here, because we're preaching to the choir, but you have got to leave here more committed to give your time, your talent, and your treasure. And don't let anybody tell you what we cannot do. We are going to do this, not just for Michigan, not just for the United States of America, but for the entire world to see how we roll in Michigan. All that we love is on the line, that's all. So if you believe in freedom and justice for all, we got to give a little more. So I want you to go on this journey with me, because I'm going to bring my brother up here, the one who's willing to stand in the ready position. But I want you to go with me if you can. If you trust me, I want you to close your eyes just for a minute. If you don't trust a sister, you keep one eye open and one eye closed. And I've just been feeling some type of way about what's going on in this country, not just because of the man in the White House, but what he has done is brought straight to our face the isms in this country that all of us collectively must change. And the election of Dr. Abdul is just the beginning of the symbol, what it means when we say power, freedom, and justice for all. But if you can just, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. I just want you to go with me. And I want you to think about a sister by the name of Harriet Tubman. And the reason why I bring her up, can you just go with me, sisters and brothers, just for 2 more minutes? I just want you to go with me in your mind. We know that she had to escape to freedom. And once she escaped to freedom, she could have just sat back and said, I'm free, and not care about anybody else. But she went back and got some of her family members. And after she did that, she could have said, I'm free. Some of the people that I love are free. I'm going to leave this alone. But something was heavy on her heart and her mind and her soul. And she went back to the South over and over and over and over and over again to save somebody else. So my message to you this afternoon, or what are you going to do to save somebody else? Because only all that we love is on the line. And it's Sister Harriet Tubman who endured the vestiges of slavery could come out of that condition and understand that titles are good, but purpose is better, and use her life force to make a difference for the people in her time. What about us in the 21st century? What about us in 2018? What about us in the great state of Michigan? Who are we going to save? Because we have an obligation, as one brother said, to plant trees whose shade we may never enjoy. Or in the words of our Native American sisters and brothers, to be able to see 7 generations beyond ourselves. That is our mission. And sisters and brothers, our mission is so high we can't get over it. And it's so low we can't get under it. And it's so wide we cannot get around it. This is our call. This is real work. And we must get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that means if we got to walk one more mile, knock one more door, make one more phone call, give one more dollar, so that the vision personified, and Dr. Abdul can have the opportunity to be able to use this ministry to work on behalf of the people. So these are the words of Sister Tubman, and I want you to wear these words. She said, if you hear the dogs barking, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, don't ever stop. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. My 21st century version of that, sisters and brothers, is that if you want a Michigan that cares for all people, we will. Keep going. If you believe that your zip code should not determine the type of education that your children get, we must. If you believe that clean water and fresh air and food is a moral and human right in the wealthiest nation on the face of the earth, we must. And if you believe that it is our obligation to transform a criminal justice system that sees black and brown people as criminals, we must. If you believe that women deserve their whole damn dollar, we must. And if you believe that we should plant trees whose shade we may never enjoy, you must. Woo, baby, and if you believe that a brother by the name of Dr. Abdul El-Said will be the people's public servant for this moment and this time in our revolution, our candidate for the people, to lift the people and use the people's power to be transcendent, we must. We must. We must. And with that, I bring you Dr. Abdul El-Said.
You rule. I don't think I have to ask the questions, but you know I'm going to anyway. Who here believes in democracy over corporate domination? And who believes we need new blood in Lansing and D.C.? And who believes that when we, the people, raise our voices, we will make that change in 2018? My sisters and brothers, we've got a choice in 2018. However much they want to tell us that the decision's already been made. The pollsters, who always get it right in Michigan, they already told us who to vote for. A bunch of people answering landlines in the middle of the day. But I know that in our democracy we've got a choice in 2018. And that choice is not just about one candidate over another. It's not even about one party over another. It is about a vision for who we are and who we want to be. It's about whether or not we are willing to stand in a status quo that keeps telling us that we just keep waiting, they're going to change everything. Or if we're willing to embrace a vision of our politics that takes us back to the founding ideals of our government. The idea that we ought to be a government for the people and by the people. Not for corporations and by corporations. Not for money and by money, for the people and by the people. We've got that choice in 2018. I've been now to over 125 different cities. People ask me every day, tell me about what you've learned on the pathway. I've learned a couple of things. First, Michiganders are good people. Michiganders are willing to ask basic questions, and they're willing to trust in the dignity of our shared humanity. But no matter where I go, when I talk to poor or working or retired people in places like Detroit or Flint or Benton Harbor, or poor or working or retired people in places like Kalkaska or Marquette in the UP, they are asking the same questions. Why is it that we're allowing a Swiss corporation to bottle unlimited amounts of our water for $400 a year, while people in the city get their water shut off for $400 a month? And people in Flint still don't have clean water. When are we going to stand up for a living standard of water for everyone in the state of Michigan? Why are we allowing CEOs of big insurance corporations to take home $13 million a year, while 600,000 of our sisters and brothers still don't have access to health care? When are we going to stand up for Medicare for all in this state of Michigan? Why have we allowed a family on the west side of the state, you all know who I'm talking about, to create this pipeline between our tax dollars we pay to educate our kids and their back pockets? When are we going to stand up and de-divorce our public schools? Why is it that in the state that put this country on wheels that we can't even afford auto insurance? They're asking why it is that in the state that created the middle class, it's getting harder and harder and harder to afford a basic living on the wage that you make. When are we going to stand up for $15 in a union? All of these issues, every single one, it leads us back to the fact that we've got a broken politics. Our politics right now has been dominated by corporate interests. They buy and sell our politicians on both sides of the aisle. We all know that the GOP's bought out. Bill shooting brought to you by Dow Chemical. But more Democrats than we'd like to admit are playing by the same exact set of rules. It is time for us to change those rules, to stand up for a politics that dignifies all of us. And maybe, just maybe, we could do it. But right now, we've watched as our political culture has fallen apart. We've been paralyzed by a culture of fear that tells us that we can't see eye to eye with people who see the world differently than we do. We retreat to our own echo chambers where everybody looks and sounds and acts and tweets just like we do. But we've got an opportunity in 2018. And that opportunity is to move beyond those divisions, to recognize the mutual humanity that binds us together in this beautiful state of ours, the state of Michigan, and recognize that when we, the people, come together, we can not only break the chokeholds on our government, but we can build the kind of government that builds for the rest of us. I was never supposed to run for office. I think if my dad knew that his eldest son was going to run for office when he came to this country from Egypt, he'd have probably stayed back home. Me too. But I became a doctor because I wanted to learn how to heal. And in my quest to understand what made people sick in the first place, I came to appreciate that ultimately it was our politics that patterned access to the very things that make people sick. Whether or not they have a good job, whether or not that job pays them a living wage, whether or not they can afford a roof over their head, a dignified meal on the table, clean air in their lungs, clean water in their cups. These are the things that pattern health and disease. had the privilege of rebuilding Detroit's health department after it had been shut down when this city was facing bankruptcy and emergency management. Rick Snyder rolled through the city of Detroit with his emergency managers, took away the city's right to self-determination. And in that moment, they made the decision to shut down a 185-year-old health department in a city with a higher infant mortality rate than my father's native Egypt. A city where our children face threefold the probability of being hospitalized for asthma, fourfold the probability of being exposed to lead. My job was to rebuild this health department. And we wanted to think outside of the box. We wanted to break down the barriers that our kids had to being able to learn and earn in Detroit like we would want for any child anywhere. We did things like build a program to guarantee every child a free pair of glasses, delivered at school within 2 weeks of a vision test. Because you know, if you can't see the blackboard, it doesn't matter what's happening at the blackboard. Stood up to some of the biggest corporate polluters in the state when Marathon Petroleum down on 75, when they wanted to raise their emissions of sulfur dioxide, we organized with the local community. Together we stood up. We lifted our voices, forced them to invest $10 million of their own money to reduce their emissions when they had wanted to increase them. And then we heard about Flint. I want you to imagine something. You're walking into a first grade classroom and it's the middle of winter and you walk in and the first thing that you feel is the hit of cold air hit your body when you walk in. First graders, you see coloring, trying to get between the lines with gloves on their hands because the boilers in their buildings don't work. You look around their classroom and you see a dead mouse and it didn't just die, it's been there for days. You walk through the school and you smell the mold that's growing underneath the floorboards of the gym where those kids are supposed to be able to play every day. And we realized that given the state of our schools that it was possible that our kids might be exposed to the same lead we were hearing about in Flint, in the very place where we systematically concentrate our most vulnerable people most of the day, most of the year in their schools. And so we put together a protocol. We had every school, daycare, and Head Start tested for lead in the water, tested all 360 buildings in 6 months, created a protocol that is now model practice nationwide for how you keep kids safe from lead in schools. But every single project we took on, every single one, led to the door of a politician. You think those doors open for people like you and me? No. They always open for the corporations. Bring their checks for the next campaign. And I am running because I, like you, like all of us, we are done waiting. We're done waiting while they're telling us that they're going to get to the problem in Flint, that someday those kids will be able to trust the water that comes out of their tap. We are done waiting. Clean water for all right now. We are done waiting while we watch a small family create a corporate pipeline that's devastating our public schools. Our kids deserve public schools that dignify their brains. We will make that happen in the state of Michigan. We are done waiting while Michiganders, our sisters and brothers, go without access to something as basic as health care. We are going to stand up Michicare in the state of Michigan. Done waiting while half the Detroiters have to go and drive without access to basic auto insurance. We are going to stand up and reverse those rates. Done waiting while our sisters and brothers in labor continue to have their access to a union decimated. We are going to stand up, we're going to fight back against right to work, we're going to stand up prevailing wage, and we are going to make sure that in this state we've got access to $15 in a union. I'm done waiting while people all over the state are told that they don't belong. Excised out of our politics, told that they're less than because of what they look like, the color of their skin, how they pray, who they love, where they come from, who their parents are. I'll tell you, it's become particularly personal for me. About 8 months ago, my wife Sarah, she gave birth to our first baby girl. And that little girl, we named her Emily, which means my hope in Arabic. Emily is ethnically half Egyptian like me, ethnically half Indian like her mom is the better half, 100% American. And she's growing up a female in a Muslim household. And I know what they're going to tell my baby girl, how she's not enough because of how she prays, because of her gender, because of her ethnicity. And I know the responsibilities we have to make sure this Michigan includes her. But the fact of the matter is that my Emily has a tremendous amount of privilege. She's growing up in a household where she's got access to both her parents, and both of us got great academic opportunities. And I can't help but contrast the life that Emily has in front of her to the boy I got to serve, who showed me what public health was despite having done 2 previous degrees in the area. This boy's name was Demarius. He was 3 years old. The 4th child of a 21-year-old mom. Met his father maybe 4 times in his life because his dad's in jail. But this boy had this confidence. He filled up the room the minute he walked in. You've all met a kid like him. 40 years ago, Emily's grandfather took a bet on this country. He decided to leave Egypt, where he was the son of the wisest, most intelligent human being I've ever met in my life, and that was my grandmother Su'ad. She never got to go to school. Raised her 6 kids in a 1-bedroom apartment overlooking a fish market where my grandfather, who had an 8th grade education, sold vegetables. My dad's days would start in the fish market, helping to put up the stall where his dad would sell vegetables. He'd then go off and study and learn with his classmates, come back to break that stall down just to do it again the next day. And by the time he'd finish, the sun would have gone down. His 5 siblings would be sleeping in their 1 bedroom. And so he would study on the rooftop of their building by the light of a lamp that was across the street. My dad was a great student. He had great public schools. And he had the opportunity to pursue graduate training in 1 of 2 places. It was either going to be Bayreuth, Germany, or Detroit, Michigan. I'm pretty glad he chose Detroit, Michigan. But he chose Detroit because Detroit was in the United States of America. And per her founding documents, it shouldn't matter the color of his skin, shouldn't matter how he prayed, shouldn't matter that his name was Muhammad, that he could be just as American as anyone else. And I learned about the ideals my dad took a bet on when he jumped on a plane back in 1978. I remember learning about them in my public high school. And I remember sitting there while my civics teacher, remember when we had civics? Civics teacher was teaching us about the framing of our Constitution. It was like you were watching as the framers decided who we would be, that we would be the kind of society that put ideals above identities. Among those ideals is that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal. But if that's true, we've got a lot more work we have left to do. Because until our state provides equal access to a dignified life to a girl like Emily or a boy like Demarius and every child that we see amongst us, our kindred, until we have guaranteed that no matter who you are or who your parents are or where you grew up or how you pray or the color of your skin or who you love or how you identify, that this state will dignify you for who you are as the human that you are, until we have done that work, the work of democracy does not end, cannot end. These have been trying times for a lot of us. But I believe in an America that believes in itself. The idea of a more perfect union. I want you to think about what that means. How can you be more perfect? It's that we, as a society, we have the humility and the capacity to correct. We have the understanding that the work continues. That we cannot be complacent where we are, that if we do not like where we are, that there's another place that we can go. But the way that we perfect is in committing to the work of democracy, which is nothing less than asking two very basic questions and being willing to look others in the eye and dignify them as the humans they are. Who are we and who do we want to be? We have that opportunity in 2018. That is the choice that we have. We have 3 days. Not even, we have 2 days. And in those next 2 days, they might tell us, well, there's not enough time. But it's not about how much time you have. It's about how much of yourself you put in your time. Because we have a choice in 2018. And that choice doesn't just happen at the ballot box. It happens every second of every day as we march forward. This is not about one candidate or another. It is about a vision for our state. And the work that we do is about instilling the justice that every Michigander deserves into the time we have. Being willing to reach out to our fellow Michiganders and ask those two simple questions. Who are we and who do we want to be? If we are willing to reach out and have those conversations, to engage our loved ones across the dinner table, our neighbors in our neighborhoods, the people we see walking down the street, the people we might work with or the people we go to school with, if we are willing to dignify them as our sister or brother, our fellow Michigander, if we're willing to have that conversation about what we can be if we choose to do the work of perfecting, I know that not only will we win an election, but for the next 4 years we will build the kind of Michigan that dignifies all of us. Thank you. Walking this path isn't always easy, and you meet a lot of people along the way. And they tell me I'm a young man, and I always look up to my elders. And one of the people who has been the most supportive, the most thoughtful, one of the best mentors I could ever have is somebody who needs no introduction in this hall in the city of Detroit. She is somebody whose work in this city hails back to those 40 years when my father chose to come and make the city home. She is somebody who has led for social justice. She is somebody who has led on the pathway to a more just, more equitable, more sustainable Michigan. She is the chairwoman of the DNC Black Caucus, Ms. Virgie Rollins.
She took my speech. You know, was she awesome too? Oh my God. Now, you know, I'm here, you know, Dr. Abdul. He is the person that we want to elect on Tuesday. Are you going to get out and vote on Tuesday? Are you going to get your family out and vote? Do you understand what it means to have clean water? Don't you deserve to have free college? Don't you want to repeal the law on right to work? emergency managers? Don't you want to repeal the law on stand your ground, which is legalized murder? We want racial justice. Well, Dr. Abdul understands what it means, the disparities in criminal justice system and the educational system and the healthcare system. So what do we want? Who would we want to be the governor, the next governor of Michigan? Now we've heard a lot of speakers today, and I know what you came. There's one speaker left, and I'm so excited today because when you leave here, I know you got already been inspired, and we want you to be inspired because we want a great turnout on Tuesday. And the only way we're going to make history in Michigan is we get out and vote on Tuesday. This has been an amazing campaign. It had more boots on the ground and voices on the phone than any other campaign in Michigan. So I'm excited that we are going to make history on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we're going to be rejoicing. So I know you are waiting to hear from the main speaker, so let's give him a round of applause and stand up and welcome Senator Bernie Sanders.
Whoa! Thank you, Detroit! It looks like Michigan is ready to make history. Thank you. The very bold and progressive ideas of Abdul, but because I appreciate the kind of campaign that he is running. And what he knows, what I know, what all of you know, is that real change never takes place from the top on down. It is always from the grassroots on up. And you can run all of the TV ads that you want. And you can get all of the corporate money that you want, but at the end of the day, when working people, black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American, gay and straight, when we stand together, nothing is going to stop us from making change. And it is great to see the enthusiasm in the room, this large turnout. I'm told there are some 2,000 people here this afternoon. But what we have got to do is to convert the 2,000 votes that are in this room right now to 6,000 votes by making sure that every one of us gets our friends, our co-workers, our family members to the polls. We can do that. Now I understand there has been some discussion here in Michigan about the polling and the fact that Abdul is behind on some of the polls. So let me give you the personal perspective of somebody who experienced Michigan polls a few years ago.
and that is that on the day before the presidential primary here in Michigan, the polls had me 27 points behind. And that was pretty good because the poll the day before had me 36 points behind. Well, we won that election. And by the way, so will Abdul. And on a personal note, let me thank the people of Michigan for that victory in the Democratic presidential primary. What that victory here in Michigan did, along with 21 other states and 13 million votes, what that victory showed is that the ideas that we talked about, that Abdul talked about, are not radical fringe ideas, they are mainstream American ideas. So thank you, Michigan. I am here today with Abdul because working families in Vermont and in Michigan and all over this country are sick and tired of a rigged economy in which the very rich get much richer while the middle class continues to shrink. This is America, and in America, we should not have a situation where the three wealthiest people, 3 people, own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. We should not have a situation where the top 1/10% owns more wealth than the bottom 90% of the American people. And at a time when people are working 2 or 3 jobs, we certainly should not have a situation where 52% of all new income goes to the top 1%. We need an economy, we need a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%, and that is what Abdul's campaign is about. And let me give you one example of how crazy and rigged the current economy is. We have one person in America, his name is Jeff Bezos. And Mr. Bezos earns Mr. Bezos sees his wealth increase by $275 million every single day. And yet he has thousands of workers who are earning wages so low that they have to go on government programs like Medicaid and food stamps. Abdul understands, you understand, and I understand that we should not be subsidizing large private corporations or the wealthiest people in the history of the world. And there is a reason why people not only in the great state of Michigan, but all over this country are looking at this governor's race. They're looking here because they want to see where the working people can stand together and take on the political and economic establishment. And looking at this crowd, I am absolutely confident that that is exactly what you are going to do this Tuesday. Abdul understands, and you understand, and I understand, that there is something profoundly wrong when a handful of billionaires can buy elections. And we are going to fight together in Michigan and in Vermont to restore an American democracy of one person, one vote. We're going to overturn Citizens United. And we are going to create the democracy that millions of people fought and died to defend. Now, I am here today because I strongly support the progressive agenda that Abdul is running on. It is an agenda that speaks to my heart. It is an agenda that speaks to the needs and dreams of working people in this state and around the country. And it is an agenda that is very, very popular. I want to tell you briefly a story. I was here in Michigan, in Detroit, a couple of years ago, with my dear friend John Conyers, former Congressman John Conyers. And we held a town meeting on youth issues. I will never forget, as long as I live, sitting in a room with a number of young people, mostly African American, and hearing their stories. And I remember one young man saying, I work at McDonald's and I make $7.25 an hour. But I can't even get 40 hours of work. I work 20 hours, then I gotta get on a bus, go to another part-time job in McDonald's, and go to another part-time job at McDonald's. What Abdul understands, what you understand, what the American people understand, that $7.25 is a starvation wage, that we're going to raise that minimum wage here in Michigan to $15 an hour, and that workers are going to have a union protecting their interests. And what Abdul also knows, and you know, when we talk about wages, we're going to end the disgrace of women making 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. And when we talk about women's issues, we believe that it is women who must control their own bodies, not the federal government or the state government. And on an issue that I have been working on for many, many years, and it is an issue I think that perhaps more than any other is on the hearts and the minds of the American people, and that is, how does it happen that in our great nation that we are so proud of, we remain today the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right? And there is no better person I know to lead us to a Medicare for All program than Dr. Abdul Sayed. Because he has been on the front lines of health care. He knows that in the richest country in the history of the world, thousands of Americans should not be dying every single year because they lack health insurance and don't get to a doctor when they should. He knows, as a physician, that it is an outrage and a moral disgrace that 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the prescription drugs they need. And he will work with me to tell the pharmaceutical industry, stop ripping off the people of Michigan, Vermont, and America. The time is long, long overdue for us to make it clear that health care in America must be a right, not a privilege of the few. The time is now to tell the insurance companies and the drug companies and the medical equipment suppliers that the function of health care is not to make huge profits off the backs of working families. A few years ago, I was in Flint, Michigan, and you all know better than I what has gone on in Flint. My wife and I went to a private meeting with some of the families of the children who were poisoned in that city. And you think for a moment about the United States in the year 2018, a nation which has unbelievable wealth, unbelievable resources. But our politics and our policies are so skewed that we have allowed beautiful children in that city to be poisoned. And Abdul understands what the President of the United States does not understand. That we have a moral obligation to make sure that all of the children in this country, in Flint, Michigan, in Burlington, Vermont, have clean drinking water, clean air, and not live in food deserts. And Abdul understands something else, which is enormously important, that this nation will never live up to its potential, will never be effective in competing in the global economy when so many of our young people are unable to afford a higher education or are leaving school deeply in debt. What kind of insanity is it that we deny the right to young people not to get a college education simply because their families lack the resources? And Abdul and I are going to work together to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And we are going to end this current outrageous situation where people in Michigan and all over this country are leaving college deeply in debt, $50,000 or $100,000 in debt. People should not be punished because they sought a higher education. And Abdul understands what I think more and more Americans understand, is that in our country today we have a profoundly broken criminal justice system. This is America. We should not have more people in jail than any other country on earth, disproportionately African American, Latino, Native Americans. And he understands, and you understand, that instead of building more jails and locking up more people, we're going to invest in jobs and education for our young people. I want our young people, Abdul wants our young people learning how to do the jobs that will pay them a living wage rather than rotting in a jail cell. Now we have a president who thinks that he's a tough guy. Well, he told us how tough he was because he rips little children from the arms of their parents. And we say to Mr. Trump, that is not an example of toughness, that is an example of moral cowardice. And Abdul understands that we treat all people, regardless of the color of their skin or where they were born or their sexual orientation or their religion. This is America. We treat all people with equality. And we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship for the undocumented. And Abdul knows, and you all know, about the courage of the young people from Parkland High School in Florida. And when they told the country after the horrific, traumatic experience they went through, that they were not going to become depressed, that they were not going to throw up their hands in despair, they taught us a very valuable lesson, and that they were going to lead this country in fighting for common sense gun safety legislation. And there is a lot that we have to learn from these young people. And Abdul understands, as all of you do, that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, at a time when cities and states are starving for revenue, we do not give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. In fact, what we say to Trump and his billionaire friends, now is the time you're going to start paying your fair share of taxes. We need governors like Abdul to stand up to the greed and the pathological lying of Donald Trump. We need governors to remind people all over this country that when Trump came to Michigan, he promised the people of this state and people all across the country that he was going to provide health care to everybody. Remember that? Health care to everybody. Well, and let me speak to the people of Michigan who voted for Donald Trump, maybe a few in this room. And that is, he lied. He lied. He told you that he would provide health care to all people. That's what he said. What he did, is try to throw 32 million people off of the health care they currently have. During the campaign, Trump said to the people of Michigan, he said, I am a different type of Republican. I am not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. He lied again. He introduced a budget which calls for $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, $500 billion to cuts in Medicare, and $60 billion in cuts to the Social Security Disability Trust Fund. During his campaign, Trump told the people of Michigan that his tax program would not benefit the wealthy, just benefit working families. He lied again. 83% of the benefits of his tax program over a 10-year period go to the top 1%. So, brothers and sisters, we are in a pivotal and unprecedented moment in American history. On one hand, we have a president who works overtime to protect the wealthiest people in this country and the largest profitable corporations. We have a president who tries to win cheap political points by dividing us up based on the color of our skin or based on where we were born or what our gender or sexual orientation may be. That's one reality. We have another reality here in Michigan. We have a candidate who is not trying to divide us up. He is trying to bring us together. AbdulForMichigan understands something very profound. That at the end of the day, no matter how much wealth and power the big money interests have, that at the end of the day, what is more important than their money is ordinary people coming together in the struggle for economic, social, racial, and environmental justice. What is happening here in Michigan will impact not only this great state, it will impact the entire country. Because all over America, we see the political revolution growing stronger every day. We see people standing up and making it clear that they are sick and tired of an economy and a government that works for the few. That here in this beautiful country, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we must create an economy and a government that works for all the people. So brothers and sisters, let us do everything we can in the next few days to create an historical victory in Michigan and in America. Let us elect Abdul as the next governor of the state of Michigan. Thank you all.